It's Miss C, your favorite global teacher, here with another recap. This is just a super quick disclaimer. These are not my opinions. This is not how I feel. These are the topics that you need to know in order to pass the New York State Global History Regents. For today's video, we're going to be talking about the Tokugawa Shogunate. So when I mention or I say Tokugawa Shogunate, the location that we should be thinking of is Japan during the Age of Exploration. So this is in connection to the Age of Exploration, because you know that during the Age of Exploration, the Europeans are trying to find raw materials, new markets in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Japan is obviously a country inside of Asia, so the Europeans do eventually make it to Asia, and they do land in Japan. Tokugawa shogunate signifies that a shogun is in power in Japan. A shogun is a military dictator. Now, yeah, there was an emperor, but he was just there for show. Kind of like how today, the British king, he doesn't make any laws. He's just there for tradition. So there is an emperor. He is there for tradition. But the shogun, the military leader, he is the one in charge of Japan. And he's a military dictator. That is somebody that has 100% control over the people. And he made a couple of laws that the regents is liable to ask about. The first law is the closed country edicts. The shogun did not want the Europeans to pull up to Japan for a couple of reasons. The first reason, he didn't want the G, God. Remember the 3 G's in the previous video? Remember, the Europeans are trying to spread Christianity. The shogun did not want Christianity to spread inside of Japan because, well, Christians, they follow God. And if the Japanese are following God, they may not be following him. So the shogun felt threatened by Christianity. So he did not allow for Europeans to enter Japan. That is why it's called closed country. If your country is closed, you are not traveling and you are not trading, you are isolated. And the shogun isolated Japan for 500 years. Other law that the shogun created has to do with his paranoia that people would rebel against him. The certain social class that he thought would rebel are the nobles or the daimyo. In order to prevent the nobles from rebelling, the shogun forced the nobles to live in his castle. He lived in the castle in Edo. Edo was like the major city at the time. And alternate attendance. So for 6 months, the noble had to live in the shogun's castle. For the other 6 months, they can leave as long as their families always stay in the castle. The noble had to live in the castle, not by himself, but with his wife and his children. Because when the noble left, if the noble tried to rebel against the shogun would kill the wife and child for punishment. Just imagine you're living under the shogun. If you're rich, you have to live with him. And if you're not rich, you still have to follow the closed country edicts. No traveling in or out, no spread of Christianity. He also did not want the Europeans to sell guns in Japan. That's why he also isolated Japan. The shogun wanted to prevent westernization. Westernization is European influence. So he definitely did not want any European influence inside of Japan, and he was scared his nobles would rebel, so he required the alternate attendance policy. Popular because he unified the Japanese people. Now, he isolated Japan for 500 years. Now, every year my kids are like, Miss, how does one shogun live for 500 years? No, the shogun didn't live for 500 years, right? It would be someone would take his spot. Another shogun would take his spot. But it's the idea that they kept the closed country edicts and they kept the alternate attendance policy until America pulls up. Now, fast forward 500 years, we're more towards the 1900s. America, just like the Europeans, are traveling around. Industrialization or the mass producing inside of factories has began, and nations are looking for raw materials. So America pulls up to Japan, knocks on Japan's door, and the shogun doesn't want to answer. America ultimately gives an ultimatum to Japan, either to the shogun, gives an ultimatum to the shogun. So, he's not going to take it well, and says, you either trade with us or we go to war. Now, the shogun, all big and mighty, is forgetting one thing: guns, okay? The Americans have guns, the Japanese do not. The samurais, elite fighters, have swords, cute, cute, cute. But you're going to hear me say this in future videos. You cannot fight swords with guns. It is not going to work. The people know that America would obliterate them with all their innovations. So instead of going to war with America, the Japanese people overthrow the shogun, take the shogun out of power because they're not with the war, and they restore the emperor, who used to be there only for show, back into power. His name is Emperor Meiji. Meiji Restoration, restoring the emperor back into power after the Japanese people overthrew the shogun. Emperor Meiji is also known for modernization and westernization. The emperor, he created a constitution that eliminated social classes, so there's no more nobles, which canceled out the alternate attendance policy, allowed for the Japanese to travel, be educated abroad, and come in and out of Japan freely. So there was no more restriction of travel. And he increased Western school systems inside of Japan. So he knew to keep up with, the superpowers, he had to westernize, he had to modernize. Now, let's talk about enduring issues, right? So for the Tokugawa shogunate, the shogun, desire for power. He has a desire for power. He wants to keep his power. That is why he creates the alternate attendance policy, the closed country laws. Now, the laws themselves, that can be impact of ideas and beliefs, because it's the shogun who felt like he needed to isolate the Japanese people from European influence. That's the shogun's idea, hence impact of ideas and beliefs. So number one, the impact or the effect the Tokugawa shogunate had on Japan, the answer will always be unified. Remember, the shogun unified the Japanese people before he came into power. Japan was very separated, different states that were in conflict. And of course, for the second question, the shogun had absolute or 100% power. I will do a future video on the age of absolutism or absolute monarchs, leaders with 100% power, in a near future video. So we'll go over absolute more. But if a leader has absolute power, that means they have 100% power. So although I will go up and read the document, just by that knowledge, I was able to come to the answers for these two multiple choice questions. Thank you for slaying global with me. Bye.